Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. I am thrilled, and the reason I'm thrilled is because I thought this was, I got to get out of the way because it's so big. This was just an amazing, incredible project, the Bronx Artist Documentary Project, where basically some of the best photographers in the Bronx moved around and took incredible photos of some of the best artists in the Bronx, and we ended up with this incredible coffee table book. And the people who are behind it tell me it's 10 years since. And so let's welcome back two of my friends, Danny Hauben, artist. What are they were going to rename the Brio Award in your name. How silly. The Bronx recognizes his own because you only won it 45 times. And my other friend is Judy Lane. Sometimes she is behind helping move his artwork out there. Nice to see you, Judy.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And you guys have, of course, put this project together, which is what I think is incredible. Danny, just tell me about how it was received 10 years ago, and maybe even define a little bit what it was and why it was, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, be happy to. Having been a painter in the Bronx, a goodly amount of my life, high percentage of my existence, I came to feel that there wasn't a great ability to connect with other artists and to be aware of all that was going on in the cultural life of the Bronx, because of what we don't have a cultural center, we don't have a downtown. How do we reach out? How do we find artists? And in 2013, there was the beginning of artists beginning to come from maybe who got pushed out of Brooklyn or other parts of the city.
And because of all the space in the South Bronx, they were using some of the loft space and all that kind of stuff. It had, let's be clear, historically it had always been happening, but now it was happening increasingly, and certainly we'd want everybody to be recognized.
Yeah, suddenly, being whatever it is, 40 minutes from Midtown didn't seem so remote anymore when everything's been filled in and priced out. So the Bronx, like the final frontier, so I was starting to meet some of these new folks who are coming into the Bronx, and I found myself painting in the loft of Janine Alfieri and Elena Bauza, and it reminded me of my brother's loft in the Lower East Side back in the 60s with a view of the river.
So the whole idea was to take all of this and put it out so that people could see how wonderful it is and how Bronx it is.
I painted it, and I had this moment of thinking, oh, maybe I'll paint like artists in their spaces in the Bronx. But then, most artists don't want another artist lurking around. Most artists don't have the space. So suddenly we kind of thought of photographers, and we immediately approached Mike Camber at the Bronx Documentary Center and said, hey, what do you think of this idea? And he said, oh, there's this new group called the Bronx Photo League, and they're meeting on Fridays, and they want to do projects of.
So, Danny, if I can just shorten it, it was basically a coming together of two art forms and the desire to, broaden the world on them. I want to show, and Judy, will get to you in just a moment. I want to show this 2-minute video so we can see and people will get a sense of what it was. And then we'll show some of the pictures, and we'll talk about the future and who knows. Let's see what.
We have 30 photographers who have just about completed photographing 80 Bronx-based visual artists.
Just a way that we could help unify the Bronx artistic community, which was pretty exciting.
This is beautiful. She's freestyling it, she's coming up with ideas as she goes.
The Bronx is like a phoenix. To me, the Bronx has represented adventure.
But I like that it's still kind of underground too, in a way.
If I saw this exhibit and I wasn't part of it, I would be like, why am I not in this thing?
It's really exciting to have that person with Pulitzer Prize winning photography and such knowledge to help me grow in that way.
I rock it, and I'm gonna keep rocking until I'm like over and above happy.
I've lived in the Bronx all my life, except when I was away at school.
When I try to get people to come to my studio to kind of process it in their minds, you know, I'm not going to a different country.
And for us, the idea is that the public should see what the visual artists look like.
You have all this crap laying around, and then I had this really nice looking lawnmower. How do I make a lawnmower the sexiest thing ever?
Excited to see how Chantal captured my studio, because everything you see in my studio really identifies who I am.
Yeah, we went through thousands of photos to edit it down to, I think there's about 120 in the show or something.
All right, congratulations on that. Look, it's 10 years ago, but there's something very eternal and obviously very, very Bronx about it. I love that the guy said, oh, I love that it's still like a little underground, you know, it's got that feel. Judy, let's just talk about the creation of it. So here's this idea. Danny comes up with this idea and he says, you know what, what should we do? What was it like putting together the photographers and the artists? It must have been, you know, kind of a Ouija board that you had to figure out how to do.
It was a bit of a headache, kind of exciting, getting recommendations from different Bronx.
Excuse me one sec, Anderson, let's just put up some of the pictures while she's talking so people will know exactly what we're talking about. We're not going to identify everything, but you'll see the majesty of look at the photography. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Judy.
So there were 30 different photographers, and they each had different styles. And we couldn't have done this without the Bronx Documentary Center and Mike Camber. He really helped us pair the photographers to the artists.
Well, that's interesting. So it was deliberately done. It wasn't. Yes. Look at this photograph.
And it was about connecting across the Bronx. We didn't want a photographer to only shoot artists they already knew.
Right.
We wanted them to travel and meet new artists and sort of be the web that we were weaving across the Bronx, so that these disparate neighborhoods in the Bronx that don't necessarily have an easy way to get to each other could connect.
Excuse me, look at this photograph. Oh my goodness. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just exclaiming.
That's okay. Exclaim all you want. It's lovely to see these photos again after 10 years on the big screen.
Yeah, they're really just so majestic. And I don't know, is the book still available? I mean, can you buy it?
There's a few copies left. It was
you got to know somebody. I don't know.
Somebody.
So Judy, we'll start with you, and then we'll give Danny a chance to. It's like I got to put it down because I can't just hold it the whole show. What is there a future for it, or do you have a way of measuring what the impact was or is, or it was just something that you know that was artistically, you know, verifiable and worked, so that's it? I mean, 10 years later, what do you look at and what do you think?
A lot of it's personal. Our network expanded exponentially through this project. We met
artist network and photography network
and photographers and their networks. Before this project began, I think Danny could count on one hand the number of artists, professional artists that he knew in the Bronx, and he's lived there his whole life.
Wow. And he's been obviously in the center of the art world for all that time.
Yeah.
So that's what you look back 10 years later and say, look, we made connections, and
that's the immediate thing. That's the immediate thing. And then when we see the artists again, they often talk about it. And a few have shared stories of things that have happened, that their connections are greater. We've connected photographers with the artists. We know photographers who work with artists, who shoot their work.
It makes me think also from the art, and this probably Danny Hauben should respond to, is that it changes your own perception of your artwork when you see it through quote unquote a different lens, that this is how it's viewed and your work is viewed. I'm guessing that helps an artist just create something new. So that's my guess. I'm not that kind of an artist, but what do you think, Danny Hauben?
Well, I think that no artist lives in a bubble, however they might think they do. We're all influenced by all the forces around us. And it is, personally, I feel like there's a great advantage to connecting with artists, and I, am always involved with artists myself. And, I think one thing that was a takeaway was that, like, for every artist all 82 artists that were in our project, everyone's work is like in its own category. There's no.
Yes, they were all different. Absolutely.
From soup to nuts, from graffiti art to easel artists and everything in between. Right. And it's all taking place at the same time. So then, besides the styles and the attitudes or whatever, I feel like there's an undercurrent of energy and creativity that was the expression of this project. And
I think we're just going to run out of time, but I think there's a lot of wisdom in there for a lot of things. That applies to a lot of things. I think in the Bronx music world, we need to, have a similar kind of thing. Maybe not have photographers, but that kind of collaboration is healthy. Judy, you get the last word. What do you think? Where are we going? Is there anything next with this, or other than just kind of reminding us how important it was to work together?
I think, well, there isn't anything next with this as far as Danny and I are concerned.
So if somebody else wants to put it together.
But it's certainly, we only did visual artists, and certainly every artist in the Bronx deserves to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
And
wordsmiths. I mean, I would weigh in on behalf of people who perform on TV.
We opted to do visual artists because they're the ones that don't get seen. They don't perform.
Right. That's it. Listen, Danny Hauben and Judy Lane, thank you both so much for the Bronx Artist Documentary Project, which was a moment in history 10 years ago, but it has tentacles that live on today. That's the way it is. Yep, that's it. All right, folks. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us on the Bronx Buzz, and that will do it for this evening. So we will tell you that if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, I'll be back next week with more. Good night.